Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Janelle, and here at Rentec Direct, I work with our team to just ensure you have your information you need to be successful in your account. And I'm happy to see we've got so many of you joining us today. Hello to my faithful friend Gina. She's here locally and here in Southern Oregon, and it's good to have you back. Stephanie and Rhonda. Oh my gosh, Rhonda, it's been such a long time since we've chatted. I'm so happy you're here today. Today's webinar on account setting is going to be just stock full of information, so buckle up. And luckily, we've got our account guru with us to make sense of it all, Kathryn. She leads up your client success team, and she is joining us to help tease out all the nuances of each setting and to answer your questions. So I'm grateful for her assistance and more so for her friendship. So Kathryn and I have worked together for several years, and we're just happy to be together. She's fun and she's sharp. So Kathryn, I've got you on board.
Hi, Janelle, and welcome everyone. And I also want to give a shout out to a couple of clients that I see who signed up today. And so I want to say hi to Lori and Susan. We're glad you're here to go through the settings tab with us. It is going to be kind of long, so hang in there, but there's a lot of good information we'll be going over soon.
Yeah, awesome. All right, well, let's get into it. So whether you're working in a brand new account or you are a seasoned Renteckie, I just want you to know by reviewing these settings with us today, I am positive you're going to walk away with some new and helpful insights on how to optimize your efforts in your account. So we're going to tackle these from top to bottom, and we're going to start with your accountant subscription.
Yeah, and before we get started, I want to make sure to provide you some instructions on how to send us some questions through the webinar tab, and that you will be able to submit those questions there on the right-hand side of the screen. We'll be answering questions throughout the webinar, and I think we'll be tackling some at the end as well. Don't worry, we don't share your personal information. It will be all private for everyone, but they will be able to see your questions.
Yeah, that's something a little different we decided we would do because we realized that we learn a lot from each other. So we've got a lot to get covered, so let's get going. The first setting I'm going to touch on is going to help review your account details, such as your membership, your version of Rentec Direct, just how many properties and tenants you have added into your account, and updating your payment preferences can be done through this setting, and you can do it at any time, and you can also see a breakdown of your monthly charges, and it's found by clicking on the links on the right side of the screen here. And when you're in your account ledger, your Rentec Direct account ledger, if you want to view the details of a particular invoice for one of the months, just click on the invoice number, or you can click on that icon on the right by the balance there. And you'll see this invoice that'll pop up, and your monthly subscription and any additional services that you've ordered are going to be broken out. And if you want a detailed itemization of those supplemental services that you ordered, you can just click on the link.
Okay, now we're going to go over some program defaults. And as you see, there's a lot of them. They're located there on the left-hand side of your screen on settings. With that being said, you can hover over each question mark and it'll give you a lot of detail regarding what you should enable or disable. But with that being said, we do like to point out a couple of our favorites that you'll want to make sure to go over. We have those that have on the summary screen that are kind of located at the top, where you can choose those items to be enabled on your front summary screen when you first log in. And then also, there's a couple other ones that I like to point out to you is like allowing owners to view work orders through their portal. You can have tenants submit work orders through their tenant portal to you. And there's also the ability to have owners view reports through the portals. There's so many options there. I wish we could go over all of them for you. But if you have any questions, let us know later or ask questions in your questions tab. And then at the bottom of the screen, there's an option to save those changes for the first program defaults tab. Or if you're ready and you just need to get to the advanced, there's an edit advanced settings. In the edit advanced settings, there's a lot more there program defaults available for you. I want to point out too that I always recommend turning on. That's going to be helpful throughout using the software. And at the top of the screen, there's display, property, and transaction memo and account ledgers. And that's will show your property and memos, especially on the bank account ledgers. This comes really helpful when you're reviewing or reconciling. And then another option that I like to point out as well is at the bottom, there's settlement dates you can have set for certain reports, like your ACH transaction reports, to kind of give you those settlement date defaults when to show up, when it would show up in your bank account for deposits. That will help you with your ACH reconciliation. Oh, yes, and there's another one there I see in the middle of the screen that I always say, please, when you're paying out to owners on a master unit with subunits, and you want to make sure that default set to no to pay out owners to individual subunits. Some people seem to toggle that one on and off, but it's already set to the primary default that most people use, which would be no. And again, when you're done with all your program defaults, save changes.
Yeah, thanks, Kat. I know that, oh, I called you by your nickname. Now everyone knows I call you Kat instead of Catherine. Yeah, but this is really an important page. And if you're brand new, I want to point out that you can always come back to this page, or if you're not sure, reach out to Catherine and the client success team, because, there's a lot of information here. But let's move on to the next one here. So your contact information is pretty straightforward. However, I do want to mention that there are some fields that come into play here for you as far as how it works with the rest of the account. So your contact information, that is fed into your report headers, your marketing syndication, your contact details for your 1099 e-filing. So it's also what we reference to contact you should you call and leave a voicemail and we need to look up your phone number. So just keep that in mind. You want to keep that up to date. And just know alternate contact information can be linked to property, marketing, or maintenance managers and additional sub-users. So we can discuss that a little bit later on in the information.
Now we're going to be going over the accounting defaults. I think Janelle gave me all the hard ones, so bear with me while I go through each one.
No.
I think this was rigged. No, I'm just kidding. So in the accounting defaults, we want to make sure to point out there's a default number of days early to create your rent charge. And so with that option to default number of days early to create your rent charge, we'll actually create that rent charge on the tenant ledger prior to when it's due. So if you, for example, if you have it set for 10 days prior to when it's due, and the due date is the 1st, then of course it'll show up 10 days early for the tenant to see it through their portal and say, hey, yeah, that was a nice little reminder to remember to pay their rent. And the default grace period is your grace period before it charges a late fee. So for example, it shows 4, so your late fee would be charged on the 5th day. Then a default monthly and daily fees as well. This can just keep in mind they can be set to a flat rate or percentage. Another item that I'd like to point out for you is you can also print checks through Rentec using either pre-printed check stocks or blank check stock. So you'll set your style down below. You can add your payee address on the checks. And there's a printer alignment. So most of the time, some people have to use that to align it just right, but it's there for you.
Yeah, those are important settings, and especially for our new clients. So thanks, Kat. And I promise I'll take on some meaty topics. So if more than one person is involved in managing your rentals, they can be added as a sub-user of your account. And if you're working in the PM version, just know they can also be assigned a property manager's role. So sub-users are added and granted user permissions by the administrator of your account through your settings. So if you're not the administrator and you don't have access to a certain area, you're going to want to talk to your administrator. Once added, you can grant them credentials to access your account, and then you'll be able to set those user permissions. So user permissions, they can be customized to meet your access needs. And it can be a read-only permission for those whose job is to look up details, but they're not supposed to be recording information. Or maybe you need to, set something for a team member that has special responsibilities. So permissions are broken into sections from account management to general task options to managing those supplemental tools or accesses to those financial pieces in the software. And on select properties and accounts, that's something that you can decide, are they allowed to have access to those? And before issuing out usernames and passwords to your Rentec Direct account, just test drive the login access to be sure your permission choices that you selected there are going to give your sub-user, the accesses you really want them to have. So you're going to know better than anyone, even, our client success team, what that sub-user should or should not have access to. But that being said, if you do need some assistance, you can always reach out and ask what something means to your client success team.
In reoccurring transactions, you'll see that all the reoccurring rent transactions that are set up when you place a tenant will be in this column here under recurring transactions. You can add items in the screen that you can see on the left-hand side. You can add an item. If you don't really know if you should add it at this time, you can always reach out to us so we can help you. It is advanced setting if you try to edit or add, but most people I've seen, if you go through the properties tab or the tenant tab, it's easier to know when you're adding that another reoccurring transaction other than rent. So please use caution. And if you have any questions, let us know.
Yeah, definitely. I know that when I've been helping clients where I've seen some errors have been when they've gone in and they've edited one of these transactions and they weren't sure and, kind of changed a few things that maybe didn't give them the results they want. Yeah, Kat, thank you.
Yeah, and let's go ahead and look at the editing screen if you needed to edit a reoccurring transaction. So in the edit screen, you'll notice that there's an action of rent charge, and then on the right-hand side, it shows reoccurring expense. So again, when you're placing a tenant in a unit, the system automatically creates this rent charge to occur every month. So in this example here, you notice that it's set up as a reoccurring monthly on the first of every month. And then the reoccurring expense on the right-hand side there is set up for like a yard maintenance. And again, it'll be on the interval day of 1. So it'll be on the first day of every month. You're just to go back to that create invoice date that we mentioned earlier. The rent charge is driven by your create invoice date. So if you set it again 10 days prior to due, then that rent charge is going to kick in and show up on that day but it's the due date will still remain the first of the month.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, and those retro changes, I see that clients have sometimes thought, oh, I'll just tweak it here and it's going to fix everything magically in my historical ledgers. And that isn't the case, is it, Kat?
No, we wouldn't recommend it either. It was causing some problems there, and so we have kind of tightened up the reins where you can't set up that reoccurring transaction to retro back and fix anything historically. You would have to adjust that history in your actual ledgers for your tenants or properties.
Right, right. Okay, so let's talk about your login and password. So when you first created your account, you were issued an administrator username and password. And it's a good idea to update that administrator password, just from time to time, just like you do with all your other services. And I want to encourage you to review your security settings. They're located in this area. So enabling two-factor authentication is going to provide you just an additional data protection, as does making some good choices about if you want your account accessed through a VPN or international access points. And you can look at those settings, read over those question marks that are next to the VPN or international access point to see what that means. But I recommend everyone who's here today, just make this a priority after the webinar concludes to take a look at this section.
In application defaults, we want to make sure that we point out a couple of things. There is a customizable perimeter located in the middle screen that is expandable. So if you need to add specific instructions to your or add custom questions, you could add them there. For single entry answers from your applicants or multiple lines. So make sure to go through all those default settings. If you'd like to set up an application default, you'll need to be sure that your account is set up for EasyPay. EasyPay is what we call our ACH transactions and credit card transaction option. And if you to activate your electronic application, you will be enabling that through the marketing page in the properties tab. And I'm sure we have another cool webinar out there to kind of walk you through all that marketing
You
information.
are right. Yeah, we do. And I know there's a lot of settings here that we're reviewing, and I know that you'll have more questions, but the whole idea here is that we're just trying to make you familiar with them, where you find this information. Yeah, definitely. So Pro and PM accounts have unlimited file storage. So you're going to see that setting in your settings tab, and you're able to upload files to either a tenant or a property or even an owner's personal file library, as well as you're going to have a master file library, and that's what you see here. So using the filter on this page, you're able to locate files. And for that reason, I just want to ask you to give some consideration on the system you choose for naming those files. So I recommend you include a description in the file name, because you can see here that those first handful of files on this page are image files. And when they were originally uploaded, they were just uploaded with the original file name, which was just a string of numbers. And that is not useful down the road when you're trying to locate the one for the beautiful living room shot for your marketing page. So if you do want to view a file, I want to mention you can click on the name of the file, or you can use the option that's in the file menu. And here in the file menu, there's going to be some additional options that you see, such as the ability to share a file either with a tenant or a property owner's portal. So once a file has been shared, you're going to see that it is indicated with a tag, and it's right next to that file name. And let's see here, there are some settings on this page that are going to be going away sometime in the near future, as the task is just handled in a different location than it originally was. So I just wanted to mention it to you today so you're not alarmed if you see them disappear down the road and think, oh no, what happened? So managing bank accounts and owner accounts, it's now handled exclusively through the accounts tab versus the settings tab. So we're just giving people plenty of warning that that'll go away. And also managers are now handled in the same setting as sub-users. So we mentioned that earlier. I just wanted to point that out to you there. So how are y'all doing out there? Do we need a little coffee break, a little stand up and stretch? I know that I personally do my best when I'm taking in new information, if I do it in chunks, because if I do too much at a time, my brain just short circuits. So I'm going to have a little drink of tea here. Yeah. And about, I want to mention something we could do for fun. So we're going to take a little mini break from settings, and we're going to check the temperature where everyone is at right now. So click on your polls tab. It's going to be, like Kathryn mentioned, where the questions is. It's going to be on I think it's on the right side of your screen, and just tell us your story, because as Kathryn and I both said, we see a lot of familiar faces joining us across the country, and I just know not everyone hopefully is living in a fog bank like Kathryn and I are. So just tell me there's someone out there that's going to be wearing short sleeves today, and maybe you're soaking up some sunshine. Kathryn, how are you doing over there on your side of the office?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm hoping that they're hanging in there with us while we're going through all of the settings tab, and that they haven't ran outside to go to the beach where the sun is right now.
Right.
Or maybe take us with you.
Right, please, yeah. It is beautiful here in Southern Oregon, but not in February. Yeah. All right. Well, let's get back to the settings after you've all answered your questions and you're daydreaming of where you're going to travel, because we've got a lot of information we want to share with you. And Kathryn, I think you're going to jump back in first.
Oh, great. So I'm going to go over the email templates. We have some standard system tools, or templates, I should say, that you can have automatically sent to your tenants. They're called automated emails. So you'll notice in this link here that it has the system's new charge posted email, which would go out as soon as that uh, rent charge, for example, was created on their ledger. It would send them a reminder. And we have the database field on the menu there on the right hand side, where you can actually customize certain fields such as first name, last name, portal link, balance, and so forth. So when you click on that menu bar and choose fields, those database fields populate that information into those email templates for you. You have the ability to create your own email template, and that actually can also be sent out through a text message as well. Janelle threw another one over here to me to go over, and that's the manage vendors and payees. To add a vendor or payee, you would go into this tab here, and you can see that you can add them at the top left. I think we put all our action buttons for the most time, being pretty consistent there to the left-hand side. When you go ahead and add a payee, you can also add them on the fly. I just want to make sure you know that if you're happening to post an expense and Johnny Plumber is not there, you can actually add them at that time and come back into the screen later to add like the important information like their social security number, EINs for 1099 reporting, and their address. But at least you know that you can save that information. On the right hand side, we have the 1099 miscellaneous box there to enable, and it seems to be missed a lot. So keep in mind that you'll want to enable that if it's one of those vendors that you'll be adding to your 1099 reporting at the end of the year. And of course, their tax ID and number would be important.
All right, so if you plan on accepting payments or sending out owner disbursements electronically through your Rentec Direct account, you're going to want to enable EasyPay. And Kathryn mentioned that in one of the earlier slides. So if you haven't yet applied, just keep in mind that there are 2 applications to complete. There's one, it's for the Rentec Direct service, and then there's one for our payment processing partner, which is Forte. So I do hear Kevin over on the client success team mentioning that sometimes people just submit the first one, but not the second one. So the turnaround time from applying to being activated, it's roughly 1 to 2 weeks. And if you have more than one bank account that you're going to be using for electronic payment processing, just know that second application is accessed through the accounts tab in the bank account page. So once your account is enabled for EasyPay, you're going to want to toggle the EasyPay settings that you see here. And there is a webinar and plenty of knowledge base articles that'll walk you through, every single step along this process. And we send you the information via email when you're approved. So, however, I just wanted to point out a tip right now that even our old timers can benefit from. I recommend you create a unique income category for transaction fees, and you're going to link it into your EasyPay settings rather than just leave it at the default, which is rental income. And by doing this, you're going to be able to easily sort out how much transaction fee income has been received, and you can do this by pulling the financial report called the category ledger. And this will be detailed out on your other income and expense reports, and it just ensures your rental income performance isn't inflated. So that's why I recommend you separate these out.
Yes, and we also offer cash payments. So if you have 50 plus rentals and at least 10 cash payers each month, we recommend that you set up the e-cash payment option. It's more secure than accepting cash, in the office, and there's no more running down to the bank to make deposits. It's easy and convenient for your tenants. There's certain payment terminals around the nation where they can make these e-cash payments. To me, it's like I look at it as a like electronic money order, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
There's no transaction fee to you. Tenants pay a flat fee each time, just like they would if they were buying a money order. And there's also a training video that goes through all the details regarding cash payments.
Yeah, it's pretty short. So it's pretty straightforward once you get set up, and clients are really liking that. We just brought that in last year. So let's see here. So let's talk about website and branding. So all Pro and PM accounts include a free 5-page website, and it's hosted by Rentec Direct. So if you weren't aware of that, I just wanted you to know about it. So the templated website that you have waiting for you, it's ready just right out of the box. I like to say you can plug in your desired website address, you can upload your logo, and you can put in, descriptions for each page, and you can even publish any vacancies that you might have. So if you want to use your own domain name, if you already have one, you have the ability to have it pointed to this website template. And if you're familiar with HTML, or you have a web designer in your back pocket, or just any college kid that lives around the corner from you, you can, customize the layout as well as you can insert this marketing page into a privately hosted web page. So again, there are supplemental resources for you to learn how to do all this, but here's your jumping off point. And here is a sample of what the home page of your Rentec Direct hosted website looks like. It's great for free. I think all our clients should be utilizing this if you don't have a website.
We'll go over utilities. Like we mentioned, there are several utilities that we'll take one by one here and look at them. It's kind of like a submenu off your settings tab. So let's take a quick peek.
So your first utility that Kathryn has mentioned, it provides you tools to download the data you've entered about properties, tenants, and owners. And the data is downloaded in a CSV file, which is just compatible with Excel or Google Sheets. And some clients like to use it to manipulate the information outside of their Rentec Direct account for custom reasons, such as I know one client I talked to, he uses the tenant export to create a mailing label file, and he does that in Excel. And then another client that I worked with, he uses it to export the owner information, and he likes to track updates that he provides to property owners on changes to laws in the various locations he manages for them. So this utility is great for those who are just into customizing their management tasks. So wanted to point that one out for you.
Yes, and we also you have this option to download utility billing data, to break down your utility costs by unit. This was first, I think, was created based on a popular billing company called ISTA. However, it actually works really well with any company or any kind of spreadsheet you have where you're monitoring their utilities, and you just need to upload them. So keep that in mind that you can use it. Just as says ISTA, it's still the format that can be used by other companies as well, and or your own spreadsheet. When you download the billing data, these fields will populate in a CSV file that we have highlighted there. The second part of the utility billing tool is importing these charges either from your utility billing company or by you. Again, the instructions are linked into this page for easy reference. And here's a sample of a spreadsheet you'll be using for a batch import of a tenant utility charges. And remember, you can always post charges to a tenant ledger individually through the tenant tab if you don't use this option.
Yeah, and I know that not a lot of clients have utility billing companies, but I know I did when I was doing property management, and it's just a very helpful tool. So if it applies to you, great. But let's dig into some 1099s. So 1099s, as Kathryn was mentioning when she was talking about vendors, they can be filed electronically through your account with our partner. Their name is Nelco. And if you're recording your expenses and you're capturing your vendor in these expenses, as well as recording property owner disbursements, you're going to very easily be able to file your 1099s through your Rentec Direct software. So we have a webinar recording you're welcome to watch on our YouTube page, and it features Kathryn and our Nelco representative, and it goes into all the information you could possibly want about this feature. So here's a list of this year's prices. They don't change much year to year, maybe just a few cents, but they offer various products and you can take advantage of them. There's the federal to the state e-filing to mailing options for 1099. 1099s. It's definitely a very affordable solution and one our clients really appreciate having access to.
The transaction history log is helpful for administrators to view all sub-users like edits and voids. It's also useful for auditing. You'll notice there's a filter on the left-hand side there that you can use to filter your transactions. And then, for example, we have this little blue arrow. When you click on the blue arrow, it gives you more detailed information about the transaction and how it was changed or edited.
Yeah, I think this is a great tool because how many times are you working and the phone rings and somebody walks in your office and you clicked a button and you think, oh no, what did I do? So I love that we added in this feature. So there's another utility called API keys, and API stands for Application Programming Interface. And the basic concept is it's used for two different programs to communicate with each other. And your Rentec Direct account has two APIs currently. So Z Inspector is one of them, and it's a really cool web-based company that's whole focus is property inspections. So, move in and move out, yearly inspections, video inspections, checklists, etc. So our clients that work with the inspector, they just rave about their product, and that's why we partnered with them. So if you look into them and you're interested, know that the two programs talk to each other, and it's just going to save you time having to go back and forth between the applications to record the activity. And then the other API that we offer is related to the marketing webpage in your account. So if you have a privately hosted website, meaning you're not using the Rentec Direct one, but you want to customize how the data about your rentals is organized for that marketing page, this tool is for you and your web designer. It's definitely an advanced feature that you're going to need to know how to manage independently. So there are some common terms that are used throughout the program, and one of the settings that you can toggle is custom terms. So for example, if you call the people who rent from you residents instead of the default that's loaded in that we have it set to tenants, you can tell your program your preferences. And this just goes into a lot of different places in the software. It can be on portals and in forms, etc. So look through these and see, one practical application I've heard from clients who manage HOAs is the option to change the default term that's used to describe that monthly charge. They change it from rent charges to HOA dues. So there's a lot of options there for you to consider. So look at those custom terms.
C.A.M pools. C.A.M stands for Common Area Maintenance Pools, in case anybody needed to know, because I know sometimes we get asked that question. It's used mostly with commercial rentals who need to track expenses related to commercial rentals that one or more tenants are responsible for those expenses. And to create a new one, you can click Add New Pool on the left-hand side there. And you add to the list and begin with a begin and end date. You can choose, of course, your frequency. And then once that's set, you would go and link to a tenant to that pool. So we'll have to go to the tenants page. And in the tenants page, you can now choose from the drop-down menu C.A.M charges, and then go ahead and set that C.A.M charge for that tenant. And you can either set it at flat rate or percentage. And again, you just choose your start and end date. There is a lot of questions sometimes surrounding C.A.M pools. So there is more information in our knowledge base manual, which I'm not sure we mentioned through this whole webinar. Have we, Janell?
That's a good point. We have a knowledge base. So if you're wanting more detailed written instructions about these settings that we're talking about, yeah, definitely check out the knowledge base. It's linked into your account at the very bottom of the screen. You'll see that on every tab. So let's talk about custom fields. So custom fields can be entered into a tenant, property, or a property owner's files. And it's simple to create these new fields in this utility. So once you've created the field, you can then populate that information. So simply edit the tenant or the property or the owner, and you're just going to scroll down to the bottom of the page and you're going to be able to enter those details. So keep an eye out on your summary page for a new feature that's coming soon. I wanted to just put a plug in here for our awesome development team. So a new feature is going to be allowing you to use your filters to locate these custom fields. So it's going to be super easy to locate details like which tenant's car is that has 4 flat tires, or is that my tenant's dog that's terrorizing the neighborhood? So if you're storing those custom bits of details about your tenant's properties or property owners, you're going to be able to find them. So keep an eye out on the summary page for that announcement.
Yeah, in Rentec we have forms where your account has the ability to create custom forms and letters for your tenants and property owners. Of course, we see it used a lot for lease agreements and and we send where you can send it out electronically to your tenants, which makes it super convenient. These forms can also be printed or email. So there's where you can create your custom form and add again, we're back to that database fields there in the menu. So you can add database fields, which will be very helpful. So that form can be used over and over again. So it's not just created for one tenant, but you can use it I look at it as a template tool. And when creating your form, you can start from scratch or copy and paste it in those forms. And when you're getting ready to send it to your tenant, you go to the tenants tab, or in this case, residence tab, because we just changed one of those custom. Oh, what do you call that? Not custom fields. We called that one custom fields.
Custom terms. Yeah.
You can see that in the residence tab or tenants tab. You can click on the menu button, you can choose forms, and then that will be the option that you would use in order to send electronically or an email to your tenant. So it comes in really handy and saves you lots of time.
Yeah, definitely. Wow, that was a lot of information. And gosh, I'm so glad you joined Kathryn and I so we could point out all your settings. And we're going to continue our educational webinar series every month. So come back often to see what you may want to check out, because it's not only existing tools, but new tools. I know in March, we're going to be reviewing bank accounts, and we're going to be showing off a brand new tool that the development team is going to be releasing very soon, sometime probably second quarter.
Yes, and we'll be answering any last minute questions you send over before we close out the webinar, and how to get help. And here's, of course, if you have any questions, you can always reach out to our success team. Our phone number, email is all listed there, as well as we have chat. And I know this has been probably an extended webinar for most of you, so we appreciate you hanging in there. Don't you think so, Janelle? They're troopers.
Yeah, absolutely. And, thank you, Kathryn, for joining me today. And I know that you've got a task list waiting a mile long for you. So most of all, I just want to thank each of you for participating and just becoming experts in your account. So I look forward to connecting up with you real soon. Y'all take care.
Bye.